Good morning, Unity of Bellingham. How are ya? Yeah, I think our extended summer is officially over. It was like, I couldn't believe all the leaves on the road this morning. So it was a windy, stormy night. Yeah. So today you are in for a treat because we have our own dear Ed Loftus with us. He's going to give a bit of the talk today, but then you have yours truly as well. So me and kind of what Frank had to come up with is he had someone planned and there was a miscommunication. And so he called Ed and I, and we said yes, we stepped up. So, but the really cool part is we've got this pack of music team today that's going to knock your socks off. So we have Jill on harp, and then we have Kate and Cheryl as well. So thank you. Yeah. It's going to be good. Let's see.
The breath of God is breathing me and resting in the breath of God. I know that all is well. The grace of God is gracing me and resting in the grace of God. I know that all is well. The joy of God is joy in me and resting in the joy of God. I know that all is well. The love of God is love in me and resting in the love of God. I know that all is well. The peace of God is peace in me and resting in the peace of God. I know that all is well. The breath of God is breathing me and resting in the breath of God. I know that all is well. I know that all is well. I know that all is well.
We begin in prayer, and truly we know all is well. As we begin, we each are like a drop of water, and together we turn into a stream that follows spirit. And in this stream we flow to help others in our community, our state, our country, and on this beautiful planet. We can share love as we flow by. We can share kindness as we flow by. We can be helpful for others. We are love. And we can embody love In this time of prayer, love yourself. Give yourself a gift of nice words or feelings that you are love in action. Prayer up first within, then extend this love to family members, friends, a situation. All begins with knowing that Spirit Divine loves all. Love begins all and is all. So love all regardless of situation. With God, all is possible. If you have a special prayer for someone in need, feel free to say their name aloud. And we behold the beauty in them and know that all is well. Amen. And now we'll move into a time of meditation. Let us move together into relaxing our minds and bodies for restorative meditation. Begin with your breath. Deep breath in. Hold for a few seconds and then release. Repeat this pattern a few times on your own. Breathing in, holding your breath, and releasing. Listening to your breath, feeling it come into your body. This is the best way to relax. Just breathe in and out. Transcend beyond this moment into a space of free time with your heart and mind. A time to relax, release, and renew. Breathe in. Take this poem from Kiki Banas to heart. Pause. Slow it all down. Pause from your full calendar and long task list. Take a moment or 10 to simply be, to remind yourself that this is life right here and right now. To reacquaint yourself with your pulsing heart and your incredible body that allows you to do all that you do. To remember that life is precious and fragile and live to be in love. To remind yourself that whatever is happening or wherever you are and find yourself in this journey, it is all as it is supposed to be. Pause. Slow it all down. Pause from your full calendar and long task list. Take a moment or 10 to simply be. To remind yourself that this is life right here and right now. To reacquaint yourself with your pulsing heart and your incredible body that allows you to do all that you do. To remember that life is precious and fragile, and to live in love. To remind yourself that whatever is happening or wherever you find yourself in your journey, it is all as it is supposed to be. Breathe in. Release, relax, and renew. And remember to pause in this next week, to slow it all down. And so it is. Amen.
Well, and I also feel like I have to take this moment and channel my inner Frank, because then usually at this point, Frank comes up and he goes, yeah. That is my favorite part of the moment. So I'm honored to be able to do that, so thank you, Frank. When he asked me to speak, I sat and I thought a lot about how I could represent ancestors, right? The building of ancestors that he wanted to do for next week. And so I sat with that, and after a moment, I wrote the following, and I just want to share what I wrote. I just called it In the Midst of Angels. I believe in angels. Angels are messengers delivering a message of love and all that radiates from it. Angels come in many forms. All teach us a better way of life. They share themselves with kindness and generosity. They share their innate spirit to guide us to be more humble, more loving, more caring, more compassionate, and more conscious humans. Angels are a light. They light our way. And so I wanted to build off of that. And as I thought about what I had written, I came across this from Psalms 91, lines 11 and 12. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. And I thought, as someone with size 15 shoes, and being human, I could use all the help to not trip or stub my toe on those stones. And so I wanted to share with you today really just 3 people who've done that, and I'm going to try to do this in the next 7 minutes. But they each have messages that I think may resonate with you and that you can take just one nugget away from here today and incorporate into your life or to think about. And the first is a good friend of mine and colleague, Jim. I worked with Jim at a university in Pennsylvania. And he spent his entire career working for the university. He worked in the facilities team, making sure that the physical plant of the university, if you will, was flawless for faculty, staff, and students. So every day their experience was perfect. Not only did Jim give his entire career and all his time, talent, and treasure to the university in that way, he started an outdoor club for students. So when they came to the middle of Pennsylvania and said there's nothing to do here, he actually was able to show them there are things to do in the middle of Pennsylvania. And they did it in the basement of the facilities building. Today, that is the program called the Outdoor Education and Leadership Program that started with Jim just selflessly giving himself to students. But that's not what I'm here to tell you about. Jim was about to retire after all of that, and he told me a story. Told me a story about that he and his wife really wanted to make sure they focused on doing important things together in their retirement. He figured out his life expectancy based on actuarial things and got a vase and filled it with marbles, each one representing a weekend that they would spend together, and they would say, hey, let's make sure we do something important, right? We wanted to make sure that we focused on the things that made us happy. Sadly, a year after that, Jim passed. And he never got to use his marbles, right? And what I learned from Jim was we need to use our marbles wisely and have gratitude and positivity for each day that we have and live from that space, right? Nothing is guaranteed. We have today, we're here together today. We need to focus on today and be present with each other and live with that message. So think about his marbles that represent a vase full of marbles, but he only got to use a few. So make sure you use your marbles wisely. That's what I learned from Jim. The second was my great aunt Dorothy. She was born in 1900 and lived to 1995. Think of that span. No flight, space shuttles, right? World wars, depressions, all of those things. She was a nurse for over 50 years and a registered dietitian. She volunteered at the hospital she worked at for 50 years for like another 25 into her mid-80s. Single her entire life. But what her story really was, on top of all that giving service, right, was more that when my mother was young, 2 years old, her mother died. And on top of that, her father was not available, we'll say. And it was my Aunt Dorothy who stepped up to raise my mother for years and years, right? Now, fast forward, I'm a young boy, I'm 10 years old. My mother passed away. Who stepped up to help take care of me and my other 4 brothers and sisters? It was my Aunt Dorothy. Sunday brunches at her house, taking us to the pool in the summer, taking me back to school shopping to buy clothes in her like late 70s, early 80s. It was great, you know, buying me cookies in the favorite cookie shop I loved. But her whole life was about selfless giving. She gave of herself to the hospital. She gave of herself to the people around her. She was in a book club with her friends. But she gave herself to my mother and raised my mother. And she then raised me in a lot of ways. And she always said, things work out, right? But what I took away from Aunt Dorothy was that it's all about service, being selfless, and the gift is really the giving. She never asked for anything in return. She actually enjoyed doing it. So remember, the gift is the giving. The things that you do for others is important, which leads me to my third, and it's my father. Same story, right? That my mother died when I was 10. That thrust my father and I into my older brothers and sisters were all out of the house. I was the youngest, and they were next oldest from me was 8 years older. So my father was alone with a 10-year-old in a house and had to raise me. On top of that, he had been a teacher for 34 years and, you know, teaching young adults in a competing high school from where I went to high school. But to every person I met from that high school, when I played basketball against kids there and things, they always told me how much they liked my father, that he was impactful and that he did things. And he always did it quiet. He was not boisterous, he was very quiet and did everything from a very humble perspective. So he had it hard, right? He was raising me and he was had his job. But he was also, you know, and I'm a teenager and I'm not always paying attention, not always being the best, and just not interested in a lot of things he was doing. Which, one of the things he was doing was being the representative, he was a World War II veteran, was being a representative for the city for the naming of a new submarine that was being named the USS Scranton, where I grew up, and he was a submarine mariner. He did all this stuff related to it. Let's just say it went in this ear and out that ear. But I only realized after my father passed, and I went and I notified the Navy that he passed. I wind up getting mail, and in the mail was, on top of the flag that they wanted to have him on for his casket, they also sent me a picture and a box. And the box was just a small, simple box that you open up, had a picture of him, had a Mariner's prayer, and the Navy logo. And it also had a picture. And what the picture was a picture of the captain of the USS Scranton, who had surfaced the ship at the magnetic North Pole after learning of my father's death, and took a replica of that same box and buried it in the ice at the magnetic North Pole. Only then, sadly, did I fully appreciate the ripples that my father caused by the small acts of quiet things that he was doing, right? That he was doing small things that were making a difference for a lot of people that I didn't appreciate. And I actually got on the ship later, years later, and the logo that he had designed, and I remember seeing it laying around the house, was all over the ship. It was in the ports, it was on the people's uniforms, it was on the bulletin boards. It was there. He made that impact. Quietly and silently, never looking. So all the small things you do, know they don't go unnoticed, that people see them, and live from that place. So I'm just going to close with this. We are all angels. I'm an angel, you're an angel. Our ancestors were and continue to be angels. They're beings of light, bringing love to everyone, and it's yours to give. So stay awake, share the light that is you, see the light that surrounds you. You're enough. Be an angel, and be the angel to others the way that my three that I mentioned were to me. So I hope that you take something from that. So, Cheryl. Thanks.
So mine, this was an interesting assignment for me when Frank asked me to speak as well today. And because he gave us a nice long email about what we could do, I had a whole world of people, like 200 years worth of people to look at to see who had touched me, who had inspired me in some way, maybe changed how I thought about my spiritual learning, or who fascinated me to learn more or deeply or practice new behaviors. So I had to sift through what was a possibility for today. That was a lot. This month we're celebrating those who came before us, who pioneered, had conviction in life, and took action in some way that rippled out and made a difference. And so it can be the everyday people, like what Ed shared with people in his life. It can be every day. It doesn't have to be, a large public figure. So I began when I was in elementary school. I loved to go to our public library. It was this really grand brick building, and you had to walk up a couple of flights of stairs outside. It had this great entrance to it, but when you opened the doors, it had this, I don't know, as a kid, I just called it the library smell. It was like, yeah, and it was fascinating to me. It made me really want to wander around and absorb it and, look at all the books and wonder, what I could find. Usually I would pick mystery books, or I really loved horses. So it was like, maybe it's one of those two. But what I remember from that experience is there was one book I picked out several times to check out about a person, an individual that fascinated me. And this person is George Washington Carver. And if you're not familiar with George Washington Carver, he was born in Missouri, January 1st, 1864. The Civil War was in full force, and his family were indentured slaves. When he was about a week old, George, his mother, and his brother were kidnapped by they were called night raiders. And so they would kidnap enslaved people and take them into another state where they could be kept enslaved. So he was taken to Arkansas. It's a fascinating story how George was found and brought back to into Kentucky, into Missouri. As a young child, he and his brother then were adopted because both his parents had died. And as a young boy, he was sickly a lot, so he got to stay inside and learn help with the house chores and whatnot. And that gave him time then to develop his fascination with plants. And so as a young man, he became very studious as a result. And he ended up, I'm abbreviating his history, but he went to many different schools. As an African American, it was hard to get education at that time, but he figured it out. And so he ended up earning a master's degree. George established a reputation as a brilliant botanist, scientist, and inventor. He's famous for his work with peanuts. He invented more than 300 products involving peanut crops, including dyes, plastics, and gasoline. However, he did not invent one of my favorite food groups, which is peanut butter. So imagine that. He became a longtime teacher at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama and an advocate for farmers, and an internationally renowned botanist who consulted for President Theodore Roosevelt and India leader Mahatma Gandhi. I'm still fascinated by George's focus. He pursued what fascinated him and focused without distraction to become a revered scientist. And created inventions that supported poor farmers, their ability to produce crops more efficiently and abundantly. Predominantly then it was cotton. And so he learned in studying botany that if you rotated your crops, and then also what he did is he showed them if they planted peanuts or sweet potatoes, then also that could feed their family, but then replenish the soil at the same time. So he was revolutionary in that way. He was definitely influential in the industrial era and also in medical advances. George's life began as an enslaved child to become the first African American on staff at Iowa State University and have a national monument created in his honor. That's from beginning as a baby to be kidnapped. And that fascinated me, how somebody could have that beginning and see that power within themselves or that curiosity within themselves and follow that and do amazing things. So Mr. Carver tapped into a wellspring of life within, the still small voice that nudges and guides curiosity. I believe we each have that deep pool of spirit, and we're primed to swim in that vast creativity. We can all do that. The creativity of the universe. This prime state I call inspired action. A field of freedom that opens doors to new ideas and innovations. So how do we transcend opportunity to swim in the deep creativity of the universe? How do we find the point of light, the still small voice? Inspired action in every day. It could be in this day. And if we choose, how do we do that? For me, inspired action draws from the deep pool of universal potential that is a really big pool. It's universally big. It's limitless. And I can find myself hesitant to dip my toe into it. You know, it's like my ego, and actually a little bit about me, I've named my ego Jill. And so Jill and I have some good talks every once in a while. I affirm that I tell Jill that we're on the same team and just mellow out a little bit. So if I start to get confused, I don't know what's going to happen. I start thinking, oh, it's safer not trying, or I'm not good enough. And as soon as I start to hear those things, it's like, Jill? And so, anyway, so I found a formula because I wanted to move past that, and I wanted to give Jill and I something to do. So I found a formula to get me through these moments. And what if I look at my life by defining my purpose, and that my purpose is a roadmap to my calling? So that's where I started. My purpose is what fills my cup, produces joy and satisfaction. I could also say that my purpose feels like inspired action. My central line to unlimited spirit divine, an inner fuel that lights a fire that feeds my need to thrive. I like to thrive. I like to feel good. I like to feel healthy. I like to engage with others. So playing with this idea, I came up, my purpose is to enjoy a spiritual, healthy, fun life and provide opportunity for others to experience well-being. And that's where I started. My calling is the action to experience my life. We each have a unique blueprint. And I can't even guess what Mr. Carver's purpose was. Maybe it started out as he wanted to earn a college degree. That would be unique. And he knew he was intelligent and he was inquisitive. Perhaps that was his calling. Or maybe he wanted to be a botanist. I'm not sure. However, it seems that his calling was to be a botanist, his purpose was maybe to teach, but his calling was to be a botanist, a scientist that supported poor farmers and with their fallow fields. His calling adventures led to international accolades and ripples of change for millions of people. In the flow of our calling, ripples of divine flow forward. And that's with today and thinking about who came before our ancestors and how they touched us. I think of someone like Mr. Carver and how he began from such bare beginnings to create these ripples of change for millions and millions of people. And that fascinates me. And maybe that's what fascinated me as a young girl, that I just couldn't quite get enough of them because I checked that book out probably at least 3 times. So going back to now and thinking about my purpose, my calling includes being interactive, being an involved mom, nana, and wife, to seek and find new ways of living on purpose, to be a healer through sound baths, Rickie, and meditation, to have fun and be healthy through physical activities like pickleball, kayaking, and walking in nature. These are the activities that feed my purpose. My purpose shapes my calling. My purpose and calling are fueled from what I started with, which is that deep pool of universal potential. And that's something that we all have within us. And I'm trusting that each of you at some point in your life have felt that. It could be that you were inspired to try something new, just change your way in some small degree. I think that potential is there at any time in our life. It's not just when we're young. It can be even now. So for the next few minutes, what I'm going to do is provide you time to explore your own purpose and calling and see what you hear, see what you feel. So perhaps you know what your purpose is and you have time, then you'll have time to refine it or expand your calling. We're each on our own path of stepping stones that create this unlimited adventure called life. So take a moment to close your eyes and go to your breath. Three deep breaths. Affirm, my purpose and calling are fueled by the deep pool of universal potential. How do I define my purpose? What activities define my calling? As we come back in this time and space, I think of purpose and calling as your compass. It could be even filling a jar with marbles. It's that intention of life and how to live life. So anyway, I hope today has given you some nice things to think about. We have a few announcements. I'm first going to call up Sonia. Do you want to come up and do your announcement? Okay.
Some of you have been praying and donating to the people in Gaza, and I just wanted to share. So yesterday I got a video call from somebody there right while I was downtown at the march, and they were expressing their suffering. And another person told me that the Rafah gate got closed where the supplies were supposed to be coming in to save them. But I got a really beautiful video from a family that we've been supporting that had a birthday party, and I want to play it for you. It's a very short video. I just thought it was time to hear some good news from Gaza. So keeping some families alive there, and there's still joy in the world. Thank you.
And Janae, I just saw her. Where'd she go? I'll do mine, and I think then she'll be back. So Frank sent me a couple things. I'm going to read them off my phone because they were too long to write down. So let's see. He's asking us to gather old batteries and bring in for recycling the second Sunday of November. And this is a part of an Earth Care project, and he wants to thank you for that. So don't throw your old batteries out. Bring them in here, and we can recycle them. The other announcement is next week we're going to have a contemplative service, Dia de los Muertos. So bring a photo of an ancestor who inspired you, of a family member, or anybody important. Easy enough to find a photo, and you can print them out and bring them. And we'll have, or if you're not able to do that, we'll have paper for you to write their names down. So Those are two things. Another is that, let's see, oh, this is important because you are important. So this is going to be about you. November 2nd, we're going to have a potluck. It's not going to be an ordinary potluck, which are good and fine. I'm not knocking those. But this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have a couple turkeys and some other goodies. We're also, the focus of this potluck is thanking the 50 plus volunteers that helped make the regional ministers retreat a really, really epic success. And so this is from the beginning, the group in the inside that painted and changed lights, or art projects like Malin did that helped decorate the church, to outside, to then pre-conference, during the conference, after the conference. You get the idea. There was a lot of us, a lot of hands that made this really an amazing event. So this is all about honoring and saying thank you to the many, many volunteers. So we hope to see you on November 2nd for that.